So politics matters, and in this video I'm going to talk about the effect of politics on the war in Ukraine. If you don't know me, my name is Gerdes. I'm just a professor who's trying to help you by helping you understand context in the war in Ukraine. Okay, so the first thing I want to show you is some of my background, because I need to make sure that you're aware of this before I talk about what I'm talking about here. I say this in my About section. If you care about Ukraine, you're in the right place. I try to provide unique insights that help you understand the context. I'm a Reagan Republican who fully supports Ukraine. I know that throws some people. They're a Republican to support Ukraine. Yeah, I am. I'm a conservative without a candidate to vote for in November. Can't vote for Trump, and I really can't vote for Biden as a conservative, and I can't vote for Trump because he's bad for the party. So I'm not trying to score political points, and what I show you here, I'm actually trying to help you understand and see things a little bit more clearly. Okay, first thing, yesterday, Viktor Orban, after he was doing his other visits to other, like Putin and Xi and others, he made a trip to Mar-a-Lago. Okay, Viktor Orban wrote after a meeting with Trump, good news, he's going to solve it, speaking of peace in Ukraine. Now, how President Trump has talked about how he would solve it is less than comforting to my mind. I don't know that that's really solving the problem. It might temporarily pause it, but it wouldn't solve it. Donald Trump has said repeatedly he has a plan for ending the Russian war in Ukraine quickly, but never gave any details. Okay. This is the BBC, Hungary's Viktor Orban meets Donald Trump, and he said this, Mr. Orban has publicly endorsed Trump's re-election bid and recently said that there was a very, very high chance that President Joe Biden would lose the election. It's a higher chance now than it was just a few weeks ago before his debate where he looked really, really bad. And I'll show you what I mean in some polling near the end of this. In a tweet, Mr. Orban called the visit Peace Mission 5.0, adding, we discussed ways to make peace. The good news of the day, he's going to solve it. RT was particularly favorable to this. They wanted to see him in the best light possible, and that's what they projected. And when, you're looking at Russian state media, what are they trying to project and why are they trying to project it? And think through that. Okay, now the NATO conference just ended, and a lot of good things happened in the NATO conference. So while Ukraine was not invited to join NATO, they're on a irreversible path to joining NATO, according to, they used the bridge language as well, but only once that I saw, and they talked about this irreversible path. They're also ponying up $43 billion this year to support Ukraine, and that includes air defense systems. And we know that F-16s are on the way, so it was a good 75th anniversary meeting. Meanwhile, Zelensky got to meet with Starmer, and here's McConnell, the minority leader in the Senate, and Schumer, the majority leader in the U.S. Senate, and here we are with Schultz. And so, it was a good conference and good meeting, and a lot of good positive things came out of that. Now, at the very end of it, you saw things like this, and this is not a good omen for Ukraine, because Biden, regardless of how much he slow-walked things, has been supportive of Ukraine. I wish he would speed up the supplies to Ukraine and let them win and take off restrictions, but he's been supportive of Ukraine. And here's one of two things that Biden had to say.
I wouldn't have picked Vice President Trump to be vice president, but I think she was not qualified to be president. So let's start there. I wouldn't have picked Vice President Trump to be vice president.
He didn't pick Vice President Trump. Now, that's a gaffe. People slip. I misspeak sometimes. He didn't really think that he had picked Vice President Trump. He just misspoke. But in light of what happened 2 weeks ago at the presidential debate, it feeds the narrative that may very well be, there may be something to it, that he is cognitively in some kind of decline. I don't know. I'm not picking a fight. I'm just trying to analyze. Then you saw this. Watch Zelensky's face when he calls him President Putin.
And now I want to hand it over to the president of Ukraine, who has as much courage as he has determination. Ladies and gentlemen, President Putin. President Putin. You're going to beat President Putin. And now I want to hand it over to the...
Now, again, it was just a gaffe, but in light of what happened just 2 weeks ago, he can't afford that kind of gaffe, and it's going to be problematic. Vlad Vexler posted, I've got a few messages asking me how to approach people who deny that Biden is in cognitive decline. He is in some sort of cognitive decline. We can see it, and to deny it means that you let him move forward, and that makes it more likely that Trump wins, which I don't think is what you want if you're supporting Ukraine more often than not. There are a few people that think that Trump is somehow better. I don't see that. I just don't see. Now, he could be. He's a wild card. But from everything that he said, I don't see that. The issue is further back than not being able to identify cognitive decline. It's about not being able to identify the difference between illusion and reality. If you just hope that he's okay, hope's not a method. That's not going to get you where you're trying to go. Now, Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer is privately signaling to donors that he's open to a Democratic presidential ticket that isn't led by President Biden. He's not the only one. Pelosi is talking about it. She's the former Speaker of the House and still carries a lot of weight. It seems like Obama is privately talking about it. George Clooney, who just held a fundraiser for Biden, was just coming out publicly saying, hey, he's got to get off the ticket. So there's this weird fight within the Democratic Party now between Biden and his family, who want him to stay in place, and some people who strongly want him to be removed. This is going to, and this is one of the most important pieces of this is going to hurt down-ticket votes in Congress as well if Biden stays at the top of the ticket, and so that would prevent Democrats from taking the House of Representatives or having a stronger voice in the House than they otherwise would. And so there's about a dozen Democrats who are now strongly urging President Biden to step aside. Okay. Meanwhile, Speaker Mike Johnson a few days ago was asked of his opinion on lifting restrictions from the Ukrainian army for long-range strikes to the Russian territory. He said he was a supporter of the armed forces of Ukraine deciding the best way to use their weapons. Now, if you don't like Mike Johnson, that's not the point. The point is, even if you don't like him, if he's supporting Ukraine, let him support Ukraine and be okay with that.
Have you been talking about lifting restrictions from Ukrainian army?
Did we talk about that?
Yes.
Outside the stanchions.
I explained that the will of Congress is letter trip. The will of the Congress was to allow them the flexibility to use the weapons and assistance that were sent to prosecute the war as they see fit. So I'm a supporter of that. I believe that's what Congress intended.
Okay, so he said that the legislation that they passed was to allow the Ukrainians to use the weapons as they see fit. He is supporting Ukraine. Here's Mitch McConnell. Almost 40 years ago, President Reagan reminded the world that support for freedom fighters is self-defense. There is no daylight between America's interest and the cause of Ukraine's defense. Proud as always to welcome President Zelensky to the U.S. Senate. This is Mitch McConnell, the minority leader, the highest-ranking Republican in the Senate. Okay, now let's look at this. This is the prediction market. It's like political polling, except people actually bet with their own money. And it's really fascinating to see what has happened here recently. Look at this. Democratic 2024 presidential nominee. Yesterday, it said 45 cents. Now, you use your own money, right? And you're betting. And the higher the number is, the more likely something is to happen. And there are studies. Some of these are run by academics and economists at universities that show like these are pretty accurate much of the time. Yesterday, Kamala Harris 45 cents and Joe Biden at 45 cents. How did that happen? And today it's actually higher, 47 cents for Kamala Harris, 43% for Joe Biden. So this is amazing. And if we go back and we just look at, here's Joe Biden, here's Kamala Harris, and if we go back, we're seeing Biden's doing just fine, and then it precipitously drops off. And when did that happen? Well, at the time of the debate. And when did Harris start to rise? About the time of the debate. So everybody knows it. Everybody's aware of this. Now, here's the other thing. Who will win the 2024 presidential election? Donald Trump is now at 60 cents to Joe Biden's 22 and Kamala Harris's 23 cents. That's remarkably different. And again, you see the same pattern. If you go back and you see about the time of the debate, everything shifts. Trump goes way up, Joe Biden goes way down, Kamala starts climbing. And That's the prediction market. So I don't know that this is necessarily going to, there's a long time between now and November, but something's not right. In fact, Republicans are so confident now that Trump is going to win that Heritage Foundation is working on election legal challenges in case Biden is pulled from the DNC nomination. Why? Because they want to run against Biden, because in his state of cognitive decline, they believe that they can beat him pretty well. Now, can he step down? Yes, he can step down, release his delegates, and then it goes to the convention. And if the Democrats don't do this, if they support Biden through the convention, I think they may very well lose the election. The image that we have of Joe Biden before the debate and after the debate are two very different things, and it's not looking good for Biden. And that's also not looking very good for Ukraine. Now, it's possible that they could have another candidate, and it's very likely that another Democrat candidate would support Ukraine based on polling, but we don't know exactly how that's going to play out. Okay, I hope that helps clarify things. I want to leave you with one last thought. Pericles said, just because you do not take an interest in politics doesn't mean politics won't take an interest in you. All right, that's it, my friends. If this was helpful to you, would you please hit the like button? Thank you for that. If you want to watch more of these, please hit subscribe and ring that bell. I do these every day. Thank you for your time, the likes, the shares, the subscribes, and thank you for being the kind of person that cares about Ukraine.